Hello, my name is Margaret Thompson. I'm 68 years old, and I need to tell you about something that nearly destroyed my family. 3 years, that's how long the color had drained from my world. The sterile white walls of the hospital room, the blue sheets, and the antiseptic smell that was my entire universe. Through 4 seasons passing outside the window, my son Daniel never once opened his eyes. The doctors told me to give up hope. But a mother never lets go of her child that easily. Mom, please get some rest. I'll stay with Daniel tonight. My daughter-in-law Sarah would say this every day, holding my hand with such tenderness. Looking at her, my heart would break with both gratitude and guilt. Here was this beautiful young woman, spending the prime of her life, caring for her comatose husband. I wondered what terrible sin I must have committed in a past life to deserve this. Everyone praised Sarah. There's no daughter-in-law like her in today's world, they'd say. Daniel is so blessed to have her. Yes, I believed that too. In this hellish reality, Sarah was my only pillar of strength and comfort. No, dear. I'm fine. You haven't slept a wink last night. Please go rest. At my insistence, Sarah's eyes would well up with tears, as if she might cry at any moment. Seeing her thin shoulders, I couldn't help but reach out and pat her back. She would lean against me briefly, kiss Daniel's forehead, and leave the room. Honey, I'll be right back. Listen to your mother, okay? The way she whispered to my motionless son was so heartbreaking, my own eyes would burn with tears. The door would close, and her footsteps would fade down the corridor. In the heavy silence of the empty room, I'd let out a deep sigh. Another endless day was beginning. I'd soak a warm cloth and begin cleaning Daniel's stiff limbs, hoping somehow this warmth might reach his nerves and bring him back. Daniel, it's Mom. When are you gonna wake up, son? Please come back to us, massaging his unresponsive hands and pouring out. My heart had become my daily ritual. That's when it happened. A very faint sound. At first, I thought I'd imagined it. It could have been the sheets rustling, or maybe a sound from Daniel's body. I stopped what I was doing and held my breath watching him. No movement at all. I was about to dismiss it as my overwrought nerves playing tricks when, clank! This time it was clear. The bed rail had rattled. My heart dropped to my feet. Slowly, I raised my head, and before my eyes, an impossible sight unfolded. Daniel, who had been lying like a corpse for 3 years, was slowly sitting up. It was a labored movement, like a rusty machine coming to life, but it was definitely his own will moving his body. Daniel? My Daniel? My voice wouldn't come out properly. I was so shocked I dropped the water glass I was holding. It shattered loudly on the floor, but Daniel didn't flinch. For the first time in 3 years, he looked directly into my eyes. Not with the vibrant spirit he once had, but these weren't the unfocused, wandering eyes either. These were the eyes of a living person with clear intent. I couldn't tell if this was a dream or reality. I pinched myself hard 3 times. The sharp pain confirmed it wasn't a dream. My son had really awakened. Mom, his first word in 3 years came out in a completely hoarse, cracking voice, but it rang clearer in my ears than any sound in the world. Tears flooded out. I had stayed strong when doctors said there was no hope, when everyone told me to give up. But one word from my son released all that pent-up sorrow. Yes, son, it's Mom. Are you conscious? Oh, thank God. I rushed to embrace him, sobbing, but Daniel didn't hug me back. Instead, he gently pushed my shoulders away and urgently looked around the room. Then, staring directly into my eyes, he said something unbelievable. Mom, is Sarah gone? Every movement in my body froze. My tears, my breath, even my heartbeat seemed to stop. After 3 years in a coma, his first question wasn't about his own condition or concern for me, but confirming his wife's absence. I knew something was terribly wrong. In Daniel's eyes, there was no joy or relief, but anxiety, urgency, and an inexplicable rage. Yes, Sarah just went grocery shopping. But Daniel, are you really? Before I could finish, Daniel swung his legs off the bed and stood on the floor. For someone who'd been lying down for 3 years, he stood surprisingly steady, though wobbling, gripping the IV stand. He moved to the window to check the direction Sarah had gone, then let out a long, rough breath. Thank God. I could only stand there, stunned, watching his bizarre behavior. My mind was in complete chaos. Daniel awakening was certainly a miracle to celebrate, but this was nothing like what I had imagined. Daniel, what's going on? Are you really okay? I should call the doctor. As I rushed toward the intercom, Daniel grabbed my arm. His grip was incredibly strong despite his emaciated hand. No, Mom, don't call anyone, especially not Sarah. She absolutely cannot know. What are you talking about? Sarah would be overjoyed. You know how long she's been waiting for you to wake up. Daniel laughed bitterly at my words, a laugh mixed with contempt and rage. Overjoyed? Mom, do you know what hell I've been through these past few weeks? Daniel helped me to a chair and sat on the floor beside his bed, then began telling me a shocking story. He said his consciousness had miraculously returned weeks ago, but his body hadn't moved at all for a very long time. He could hear sounds and perceive everything around him, but couldn't even move an eyelid. He was trapped in a living coffin. At first, I just waited. I believed my body would soon move, that I could soon tell you. And Sarah, I was back. But what I heard from my bed wasn't hope, it was despair. When I left the room, Sarah would sit beside the supposedly sleeping Daniel and talk on the phone with another man. At first, he thought it was work-related, but the conversation was beyond imagination. Darling, I'm at the hospital now. God, it's so tiresome. Why won't this person just die already? In a sweet, flirtatious voice, Sarah cursed her own husband to another man. Daniel felt his blood boiling backward, but there was nothing he could do. He could only close his eyes and listen to everything. That man was Robert Chen, my best friend, the one I trusted most. Sarah's lover was Daniel's closest friend and business partner. The two of them would engage in romantic behavior, right in his hospital room, and plan how to divide his assets. Despite Daniel still being alive, Sarah was forging documents to dispose of his stocks and real estate, secretly using his seal, holding his limp hand like an object. Mom, every time that woman held my hand to stamp those documents, I screamed thousands of times inside. No, stop! But my voice wouldn't come out. She had no idea I was hearing everything, and she'd whisper in my ear, Honey, once this is settled, we'll pay off our debts and donate to charity in your name. Be happy watching from heaven. I couldn't close my mouth as I listened. The daughter-in-law I'd thought was an angel was actually a devil. While Daniel suffered hearing everything, I had been holding that devil's hand, thanking her, apologizing to her. I was so ashamed and resentful of myself, I could barely stand it. So I waited. If I opened my eyes carelessly, they might actually kill me. Without evidence, I'd just be treated like a madman if I woke up. So I waited until you were alone, confirmed Sarah had completely left the room, then moved. Mom, please help me. I need to send those bastards to hell with my own hands. Daniel knelt before me, pleading. It looked like blood tears were flowing from his eyes. The miracle that came after 3 years of waiting was just the signal for an even more terrible hell. The mixture of my son's pain, my foolish trust, and rage toward that devil of a daughter-in-law began burning through my entire body. The tears dried up, leaving only cold determination. This was no longer about caregiving. This was war. After confirming Sarah had left, Daniel let out a sigh of relief. I looked back and forth between the shattered glass on the floor, the water everywhere, and my son standing on his own 2 feet. For the first time in 3 years, trying to gather my thoughts. This wasn't the time for tears. We didn't know when that woman would return. Mom, we need to clean this up quickly. Daniel urgently tried to help me despite his unsteady body. I quickly sat him back on the bed. You stay still. Your body isn't well yet. I'll handle this. With trembling hands, I found a broom and dustpan to sweep up the glass shards. My heart was pounding. The joy of Daniel awakening was overshadowed by the terror of having to keep this terrible secret. While I cleaned the floor, Daniel changed back into his patient gown and lay on the bed, returning to a perfect vegetative state, incomparably more convincing than before. The thought that this chilling talent had been his shield for the past weeks was staggering. Mom, do I look okay? Same as before? Yes, exactly the same. Anyone would think you've been lying there for 3 years straight. After completely wiping the floor dry and disposing of the trash in the bin at the end of the hospital corridor, I finally felt like I could breathe. I collapsed in the chair beside Daniel's bed and looked at his face. Eyes closed, motionless, but now I knew behind those firmly shut eyelids, my son's consciousness was more alert and alive than ever. Daniel, what should we do now? How can we stand those people? I couldn't finish, biting my lips as anger rose up, choking me. Then Daniel's finger tapped my hand twice. Mom, when I can't speak, one tap means yes, two means no. Understand? Daniel mouthed the words silently. I nodded. We had our secret signal. From then on, we began our silent conversations. Daniel told me everything he'd heard from Sarah and Robert over the past weeks. They were planning to liquidate Daniel's securities, accounts, sell the Manhattan apartment, and had even consulted a lawyer about expediting his life insurance payout. The outrageous part was that all this planning happened right here in this room beside Daniel's bed. Sarah would whisper her asset-stripping plans to her lover as casually as I might tell my comatose son about my day. To her, Daniel was no longer a living person, just a money machine, an obstacle to their future. Throughout the story, I clenched my fists repeatedly. I wanted to grab Sarah by the hair right then and confront her with everything, but I couldn't. Daniel was right. Without evidence, if we moved first, they'd paint us as mentally unstable. Sarah was known to the world as an angel after all. No one would believe me. Mom, they're after our company too. Since Robert took over as interim CEO, he's been embezzling company funds bit by bit. I heard everything. Daniel's words plunged me into despair again. Daniel's company was everything my late husband had built with his life, our family's legacy, and Daniel's supposed best friend was conspiring with my daughter-in-law to swallow it whole. We need evidence. We should at least record their conversations. When I muttered this, Daniel's finger tapped my hand once. Yes, just then we heard familiar footsteps in the corridor. Sarah. Daniel reflexively closed his eyes and even stilled his breathing. I too had to compose my expression and return to being the tired, worried mother-in-law. The door opened and Sarah entered with grocery bags. Mom, I'm back. I bought some fruit. Should I cut some for you? That bright smile, that caring voice. Knowing the devil hidden behind that mask, I had to suppress my nausea. No, you must be tired too. Just sit down. I treated Sarah as usual, acting like I knew nothing. I had to perform down to my fingertips. Sarah sat beside me and gazed at Daniel's face. How's our honey today? His color seems better than yesterday. Mom, was there any change with Daniel? Sarah's eyes turned to me. They held pure curiosity, not suspicion or wariness. I was sickened by her shamelessness, but forced a calm expression and shook my head. Always the same. I just massaged his arms and legs, but no response. Still, we can't give up hope, right? At my answer, Sarah smiled faintly with apparent relief. Then, as if making a show of it, she took Daniel's hand and brought it to her cheek. Honey, are you listening? You know how much Mom and I are waiting for you, right? You need to wake up soon. The moment her touch reached him, I felt Daniel's other hand, trembling slightly under the blanket. He was suppressing his rising anger. I was the same. I had to bite my lip to resist the urge to twist that woman's wrist. That afternoon, an expected visitor arrived. Robert Chen. He entered the room with a worried expression. carrying an expensive fruit basket. Mrs. Thompson, how's Daniel doing? Still the same. You're so busy, yet you keep visiting. I'm truly grateful. I greeted him with words completely opposite to my true feelings. Robert approached Daniel's bed naturally, and Sarah linked arms with him as if she'd been waiting. Thank you for coming, Robert. You don't know how much strength it gives me. What are you talking about? Daniel's my friend. Of course I should be here. They showed no hesitation in leaning on each other in front of me. They were probably acting out the roles of a devoted friend caring for his friend's wife and a pitiful wife, finding comfort in her husband's friend. Watching their disgusting performance, I thought, enjoy yourselves while you can. That stage will become your grave. I had to give them space. It was an opportunity to make them reveal their true colors. I'm going to get some air. You two watch over Daniel. Yes, Mom. Take your time, Sarah answered in the world's sweetest voice. I left the room, pretending to close the door but leaving it slightly ajar. Then I pressed my ear to the gap. My heart began racing wildly. Is she gone? Robert's voice. The tone was completely different. Yeah, she's gone. God, I thought I'd suffocate. I heard Sarah complaining. Then came the sound of kissing and their laughter. My hands trembled. Right there in the room where my son lay, they were kissing. How are the documents coming? You said you were going to the bank today. Don't worry. I got everything done perfectly with his mother's seal. I converted everything in Daniel's securities account to cash. Next week, we just need to stamp the Manhattan apartment sale contract. Then it's really our money. Good job. You're so smart. The company funds will be sorted this week, too. Once we have that money and flee overseas, no one can find us. But how long will this person stay like this? Honestly, aren't you worried? What if he suddenly wakes up? Sarah's voice was mixed with irritation and anxiety. Hearing that, I felt every hair on my body stand on end. It's fine. The doctor said there's no hope. Even if he wakes up, what could someone who's been lying down for 3 years do? Would he even remember properly? Don't worry and come here. It's been a while since I've seen your face. Let's at least kiss. Robert's sleazy voice came through, followed by more of their disgusting sounds, seeping through the door crack. I couldn't listen anymore. I quietly left and went to the hospital rooftop. If I didn't get some cold air, I felt I might burst through that door and tear them apart. Gripping the rooftop railing, I gasped for breath. My son was being robbed of everything by these people, not just his assets, but his wife, his friend, and his dignity as a human being. No, I couldn't just let this happen. I took out my phone and pressed a speed dial. After a few rings, a familiar voice answered. Hey, Margaret, what's up? It was Betty Rodriguez, who lived in the same building. There were rumors she was a former detective, and as the head of the neighborhood watch, she had extensive connections and quick information. Most importantly, she valued loyalty above life itself. Betty, I need to see you. It's extremely urgent. It might be a matter of life and death. Perhaps because my voice was so desperate, Betty asked nothing and said just one thing. Got it. Come to my place in 30 minutes. I'll leave the door open. After hanging up, I made my decision. I couldn't fight this war alone anymore. I needed a capable general to face these devils. Betty would surely find a way to save me and my son from this hell. I came down from the rooftop with a cold expression. Returning to the room, Sarah and Robert greeted me with worried expressions, as if nothing had happened. Looking at their hypocritical faces, I vowed internally, yes, laugh all you want. Your days of laughter are numbered. Betty's front door was open as promised. I entered without even ringing the bell. Betty was waiting at the kitchen table with 2 cups of warm chamomile tea. Seeing Betty's face, I burst into tears. Betty, what do I do? I really don't know what to do. Betty hugged me and patted my back without a word. After crying for a while, I finally composed myself enough to sit at the table. Here, drink this first. Calm down and tell me everything from beginning to end. Don't leave anything out. With a trembling voice, I told her everything that had happened. Over the past few days, Daniel waking after 3 years, what he'd heard about his wife and friend's betrayal, and the terrible conversation I'd just heard in the hospital room. As I spoke, Betty's expression grew increasingly grim. After hearing everything, she slammed her fist on the table. These subhuman bastards. No, even animals don't harm their young. How can people do this? Betty was as angry as if it were her own problem. I nearly cried again at her response, but I knew this wasn't the time for tears. Betty, they're stealing all of Daniel's assets. I have to stop them somehow, but I don't know how. I have nothing. What do you mean you have nothing? You have the most powerful witness, your son. But Daniel can barely move his body yet, and with them watching like hawks, if we reveal Daniel's awake, then don't reveal it. Obviously, Betty's eyes gleamed sharply. These weren't the eyes of an ordinary neighborhood lady. They were eyes that could pierce through to the heart of a case, like a sharp blade. This isn't just adultery or a property dispute. It's clear fraud, embezzlement, and document forgery, white-collar crime. You can't win with emotional responses. You need to gather evidence thoroughly and destroy them completely through the law. Betty's words snapped me to attention. She was right. What I needed to do now wasn't to rage or grieve. Evidence? What kind of evidence? First, you need to record all their conversations, then secure concrete evidence of them. Stealing assets like contracts or account transfer records. Most importantly, prove that your daughter-in-law used your son's seal without authorization. But how do we get all that? Don't worry, I'm here. Betty got up, went to her room, and returned with a small box. Inside were various types of mini recorders and cameras I'd only seen in movies. What's all this, Betty? My hobby equipment. Can't trust anyone in this world, so I protect myself. Betty grinned and showed me how to use the button cameras and pen recorders. Then she gave me stern advice. Margaret, from now on, you need to act. Play the innocent, foolish mother-in-law who knows nothing. Do whatever your daughter-in-law asks. Give her money without complaint when she needs it. Make them let their guard down completely. Make them treat that hospital room like their own bedroom. The more comfortable they feel, the more evidence we can gather. I nodded at Betty's words. Acting it was incredibly difficult for someone who'd lived sincerely all her life. But for my son, I could become a devil if necessary. And tell your son to keep doing exactly what he's doing now. He absolutely must not open his eyes or move in front of them. The more perfect the performance, the sweeter the revenge. I hid the weapons Betty gave me deep in my bag and returned to the hospital. Entering the room, Sarah greeted me with a worried face. Mom, are you feeling sick? You don't look well. Remembering Betty's words, I acted like I might collapse. I think I'm coming down with something. I've been under too much stress lately. Dear, could you watch over Daniel tonight? I think I need to go home and rest. For a moment, color returned to Sarah's face, though she quickly changed her expression and spoke with concern. Of course, Mom. I should be here. Please go home and rest well. Don't worry about Daniel at all. I nodded reluctantly and left the room. The moment I turned my back on Sarah, a cold smile crossed my lips. Yes, I'll give you both a very nice gift tonight. After returning home, I immediately headed back to the hospital. Not to the room where Sarah was, of course. I entered the 24-hour cafe. I'd scouted earlier and took a corner seat by the window. From there, I had a clear view of the building where Daniel was hospitalized. As night deepened, Robert entered the building as expected. I took out a small receiver from my bag and put in the earphones. It was from Betty, a device to pick up signals from the recorders I'd secretly installed under Daniel's bed and behind the flower pot before leaving. Darling, you're here. Sarah's excited voice came through the earphones. Is his mother gone? Yeah, she went home saying she wasn't feeling well. Tonight is our world. The two giggled together. I clenched my fists and focused all my attention on the sounds coming through the earphones. They were even drinking wine, celebrating. Look at this. This is the money I withdrew from the bank today. $500,000. I didn't know your friend had this much in his account, Robert said admiringly. Sarah answered proudly. This is just the beginning. When the apartment sells next week, we'll get another 2 million. We can live it up with that, then maybe start a small business later. Sounds good. But what about the company? Isn't it too risky to let that go too? Don't worry. You're the interim CEO. You just need to approve things. If we embezzle through slush funds, no one will know. And this person's gonna die soon anyway. Who's gonna check? Sarah casually spoke of my son's death. I bit my lip until I tasted blood. Still, are you sure this person won't wake up? Sometimes I get nervous. Didn't you hear the doctor? His brain function is almost stopped. He's just a vegetable breathing. A vegetable. Don't worry unnecessarily. Here, let's toast to our future. Yes, cheers. The sound of their wine glasses clinking pierced my ears sharply. While I felt relief that I was recording all this conversation, I also felt my heart being torn to shreds. That night, I stayed up with dry eyes, listening to their disgusting conversation and laughter through the earphones. My anger sharpened like a blade. The next morning, I returned to the hospital room as if nothing had happened. Sarah, looking tired from what seemed like a night of passion, shamelessly lied to me. Mom, I couldn't sleep a wink watching over Daniel. I was worried something might happen. I smiled at that hateful face. You worked hard, dear. You really did. While Sarah was away, I approached Daniel and put my hand under his blanket. Using our signal, I asked, "Were you okay last night?" Daniel didn't respond. Instead, I saw a tear roll down from the corner of his eye. The pain my son must have endured, trapped in his immobile body, having to bear his wife and friend's betrayal with his whole being, was transmitted directly to me. I wiped away his tear and whispered, "Just a little longer, son. Mom will definitely bring those people to their knees." That afternoon, I retrieved the recorders and cameras I'd installed in the room and headed straight to Betty's house. This was our first piece of evidence. Very well done, Margaret. With just this, we can socially bury them. But this alone isn't enough. Betty clicked her tongue after listening to the recording. This is just circumstantial evidence. In court, we need something more concrete. Evidence of them actually stealing money, the money trail. We need to track where the money went. The money trail? Yes. If we trace where Sarah moved the money from your son's account, we can find the hidden slush fund accounts. Once we find that, game over. But how can we look into bank accounts? Sarah was already acting as Daniel's legal representative. Even if we went to the bank demanding information, we'd obviously be turned away. It's not completely impossible.